What's up, guys? So for the longest time, you guys have wanted me to share about my delivery story, and it's taken 4 months to accomplish this. But that's just because I'm doing this by myself, so it takes a little longer to get things done when you're, like the only one with the baby 24/7. So some of you may not care to even watch this video because you're like, we don't care anymore. And that's fine. Feel free to move along. But for those that are still interested, I'm gonna share a little bit about my delivery. So a lot of people have been asking me like how long I was in labor for, and technically there's like early labor and then active labor. And I was in early labor for like 2 days. So that means I would wake up all day long. I was feeling on and off contractions. Then at night they would get like more and more intense to the point where I was timing them like every 7 to 8, and then they would like get close like 5 or 6 and then space back out. So think about that for like 2 days straight. I went to see my doctor on, I think it was that Monday, and I don't think I was dilated yet, but then I went home, was having more contractions, and then the next day came, same thing. I was like still feeling contractions, and the next day comes along, and I was like, you guys, I called the birthing center, and I was like, I have a feeling that like I just need to get this baby out. And I was already a week past my due date, so I was 40 weeks, so technically, or I guess 41, I don't know, I get so confused. But I was past my due date pretty much, like well past. And so I think they were feeling like, okay, well, let's get you down here. So I delivered in Laguna Hills because there's 3 birthing centers. There's one in Corona, Laguna Hills, and Long Beach. And so I delivered in Laguna Hills. So I was like, okay, but if I come down there, like I'm not leaving without giving birth to this baby. She's like, okay, that's fine. Like, we would want you to stay. We want to help move the process along. I was like, okay. So mind you, this is like after multiple days of like what felt like false alarms, because I would have contractions and think like, okay, it must be coming. And then like they would space out, and it was getting really stressful. So it wasn't until I got down there. So I'm at the break. So my mom and I load up my bag. This was like at 12 something in the afternoon. So like lunchtime on the 2nd, February 2nd. So we head down there and we get inside, and they're pretty much deciding like how far along I am. So they do their little check, and I was like 1.5 centimeters. And she's like, well, while I'm down here, do you want me to do a membrane sweep, which is basically where they like sweep the membrane to separate the placenta from like, just try to create separation. Anyway, you can look it up. And I was like, I guess since you're already down there, like, sure. So they did the membrane sweep, and then they got the bath ready, because they have a huge bathtub, and so possibly was going to deliver in the water, but I'll get to that. So I get in the bath, and so every time a contraction would come, I would just like float. Literally, I would just like I would hold on to the rail, right, with my hand, or with this hand, and I would just like let my whole body like go like limp in the water and just float in the water. And I think that ability to relax while I was having these contractions is what like sped up the labor. So I was doing that, and the goal was to try to get me to like rest, even though like realistically I didn't fall asleep. I didn't fall asleep until after I gave birth. Sorry if my hair's a mess. I kind of just like threw it up right before this, but whatever. Anyway, so I'm in the bathtub, haven't slept. That's how tired I am right now. And I was like, okay, so let me just try to like close my eyes, do these contractions. And pretty much every time I'd have a contraction, I had my mom like come over, because she was sitting in a rocking chair like behind the tub or whatever, or like off to the side in this private room. And I'd be like, mom, it's coming. So she'd run on over, and she'd like hold my hand. And one of the delivery midwives, they were telling me to like think of myself melting every time I had a contraction, like melt into it, like relax into the contraction. So I'd have my mom come over and be like, Mom, tell me I'm melting. Just tell me to melt. And she'd be like, okay, melt, Aubrey, melt. And she would say that over and over again. So giving birth is pretty much like repetition, like repeating the same mantras to yourself. Like it's contractions over and 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 over until finally the baby comes out. So I really do feel like delivery is literally just repetition. And if you can get through the craziness of like, are these contractions ever going to end? Is the baby ever going to come out? Like if you can mind over matter. And it took my whole team of people to like help me get there. Like I'll get to that. So I'm in the tub. Finally my doula shows up. She's great. Tony, love her, from Milky Mama. Anyway, she shows up, and so now she's trying to help, and my mom's helping, and then the midwives come back in and they check me again, and I was now at like a 4. So they're gonna of course keep me there because now I'm in active labor, I'm contracting, I'm dilating, and it's working. So I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking like, okay, cool. Everything at this point was still like la la la, ha ha, ow, you know what I mean? Like it was hurting, but it wasn't like death. So then, so we get out of the tub, and I started doing kind of contractions everywhere. I was doing some while I was on the toilet. I know it sounds weird, but actually like women who've delivered know this is a thing. Like having contractions on the toilet is actually very helpful because you're able to like, if you need, okay, so first of all, you're peeing a lot because you're, anyway, long story short, it just is very helpful. So I was doing a lot of those contractions, and every time I'd stand up, and then every time I had one, I'd sit down and I'd try to just relax and like do like a wide stance with my legs or whatever, and try to relax. And you know, the toilet's like that perfect like elevation from the ground, so that you're not like, if you're high enough up but you're not like low where you're doing a weird froggy weird thing. So it was perfect. And they would come in with the little Doppler thing and like check her heartbeat like every like hour or something. They were doing it all the time. They were checking her heartbeat, and her heartbeat was great the entire time. She never ever dropped in her heartbeat. Very strong the entire time. So that gave me a lot of like peace, because I knew like I just need to keep staying calm so that my baby is calm so we can get through this delivery. And so I think they were starting to pick up at some point, and we got me back in the tub. Okay, yeah, so we got back in the tub, and at this point still haven't slept for days. So I'm getting really tired at this point, and I get back in the tub because they're starting to get a little stronger at this point, and we're thinking the tub will help like keep me, you know, like comfortable. So now we're doing a lot of contractions in the tub, and every time they come on, it literally, I couldn't stay calm. Like before, when I was in the tub, I was like laying in the water and the contraction would come and I would just float. Now every time like I was relaxing and a contraction would come, I'd get up on my like knees, like, you know, like kind of like doggy style, I guess, or whatever, and like rest on the tub. And like the midwife was like right here, like here's my face on the tub and here's her face, and she was literally just like, Aubrey, like relax, no, relax, because I was like tensing up, and she was literally like locked in. Her name was Sarah. She was like incredible. Like I literally think like she's what got me through a lot of the contractions, because she just was locked in on me, like, you're gonna get through this. Like she was just so lasered in on me, and as like as the mom, like she needed to be focused on me. Like the baby, someone was coming in to check the heartbeat, so we had multiple people on our team. It was my mom, my doula, and then 2 midwives and a midwife assistant. So there was 5 of them in the room plus me. So we had a good team of like, everybody had a job, everybody was taking care of what needed to be taken care of. And so it was getting to the point like the contractions were getting really painful, and I was crying. And at this point, this is when it was getting really serious, because at this point I was like, you guys, like I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. Like I want to go to the hospital. I can't, I just need a break. I need an hour to sleep, and then I can push her out. Like I just physically, I was in so much pain at this point. So at this point, I think they rechecked me, okay, so here's what, okay, I'm getting that. Sorry, my brain. So forgive me, but it's been a long day, but I look decent, so I wanted to make this video today. Don't judge me if you're like, you don't look decent, Aubrey. I'm like, I look decent enough, okay? I did my hair and my makeup, okay? I'm in a dress, thank you. Moving on. So I'm finally like crying at this point, and I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go to the hospital. And they're like, how about this? How about we get you out of the tub and we check to see how far along you are dilated. And if it's far enough along, we can help kind of stretch your, essentially stretch the rest of the dilation and help get her out. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, sure, at this point, I'm willing to give anything a try. But I was crying. I was at a point where I literally looked at my midwife in the eyes and said, I'm done. I want to go to the hospital. Like, I want to go. And she was the one who was like, she went back to this head midwife, BJ, and that's how they came up with the plan. So they get me out of the tub, get me on the bed, because we have a private bed in the room anyway. So they get me on the bed and they check the dilation. And at this point, I was like an 8 to 9, I think, like a 9, 8, 9, 9, I don't remember, somewhere in that ballpark. And so they're like, okay, well, this is how far along you are. This is what we'll try to do. We'll let you start pushing soon if you feel like you want to push. And so I'm like, yeah, because at this point, the contractions are so painful. Your body like needs to do something. Like, okay, you can only relax into contractions for so long. It gets to a point where the goal of the contraction is to push your uterus and squeeze the baby out. So it gets to a point where you're having such intense contractions, you need to push. You need to like give into that pain versus just trying to like relax, because at some point that's not what your body is trying to do. Your body's trying to push. And so we started doing pushes and stuff. First they had me on my back and with legs up, and she was stretching. So she would like hook her fingers in and stretch. And this is probably graphic for some people, but who cares? It's giving a birth. So move along if you're not interested in this. And then we started trying somewhere like I was now standing on my feet. I was at the edge of the bed. And when I had a contraction, I would like hold on to the bed somehow and like squat down. So kind of like squat and like hold on. And I didn't like that so much at all. Then we went back to having some more contractions on the toilet, because that was a way to keep my hips open. Like I said, your hips are really wide on the toilet. So I was in so much pain. I was crying. I just wanted it to be over. And they would continue to come in and check my stomach with the Doppler and make sure her heartbeat was good. It got to the point where we got back on the bed and we were trying like the back, me laying flat again. And that was just, it just wasn't, I wasn't dilated. I was still pushing, but I wasn't dilated enough to get her out. So I needed to take a break. So like, let's give you a break. So I laid on my side, and every time I had a contraction, they would just like rub me. And I was telling them like, put your hands on my hips. Like touch, I just needed, again, contractions. The goal of a contraction is it's a catalyst. So what I needed when I had a serious contraction at this point was for there to be energy on the contraction, meaning I needed pressure on my hips. I needed someone to I was holding my doula's hand every time a contraction came. I was still holding her hand even when it was over. Like, you need a place to like put the pain. It needs to be squeezed. It needs to be touched. You know what I mean? Like, because the goal again of a contraction is to squeeze your uterus to get the baby out. So if you're able to like that pain that you're feeling, give an outlet to it, whether that's holding someone's hand or someone like putting like their hands on your lower back, it helps your brain focus elsewhere until like, okay, so that's what was happening. Finally, they gave me 2 Tylenol, like with codeine, the ones with the little color. Anyway, I took those, I threw them up. I couldn't keep anything down. And at this point, I'm doing this all natural. Like, the only pain reliever that they had tried to give me, I just threw up. I swallowed it and it came right back up. So I've had no pain medicine. I'm not hooked up to an IV, so they're not giving me any fluids or anything. And that's not like a bad thing. Like I could drink water. I was drinking water, things like a honey stick and stuff to keep me going. But what I'm saying is like they weren't feeding me like an IV full of like pain meds. I had nothing in my system, okay? So then, again, now I get to another point where I'm like, you guys, if we don't get her out, I have to go to the hospital. I cannot do this anymore. I am so tired. I haven't slept. She's not coming out yet. Like, I am pushing. I'm doing everything that you're telling me to do. And so finally, like, BJ looked me in the eye. She's like, all right, if you're ready to get this baby out, I will help you get this baby out. We're gonna get this baby out. Like, so here's what I need you to do. When I tell you, you're gonna do this, you're gonna breathe in, you're gonna hold your breath, and when I tell you to push, you push like your life depends on it. So we just did this over and over and over and over. I'm laying flat again. She's like, and this is what she said. She's like, but if we're gonna do this, I need you to be back in a laying back position. That way I can really help to pull open so that she can come out. And so now I'm like, okay. So they get me on my back. I got my mom on one side with one leg, got my doula on the other side with my other leg. I got both the midwives here. I got the other assistant over there. They bring the light in, you know, the little doctor light thing, and it's like go time at this point. And by this point, it's like 11 something at night, pushing midnight. And it was all during that time frame that it got really serious. And I thought she'd be born on the 2nd. So anyway, so we're on my back, legs are up, everyone's there, and she's like, pretty much it was on me. It was like, okay, are you feeling one come along? And I'm like, okay, and it got to a point where I was like, I don't want to tell them anymore. I don't want to push anymore, but I knew I had to. Like, that was the only way to get her out. So I'd feel a contraction. I'm like, all right, I feel one coming. And I wasn't saying it that nicely. I was like, okay, and I'm crying and I'm ugly and I'm just like, it's coming. And so they're like, okay, take a deep breath. So I go, take a deep breath. And they're like, okay, hold it. So I hold my breath. The point is when you take a deep breath, you open your esophagus, your whole diaphragm opens really wide, your lungs, everything fills up, and that helps, think of a balloon, it's help pushing, like it helps create that pressure to like push. If you have like a little thing and you're trying to push a little thing, you know, you need it to be a big thing so you can make a big push. Get it? Big balloon, big push, little balloon, little push. So they wanted me to fill up my lung capacity, hold it for a sec, and then push that big balloon push, you know what I mean? So that's what I was doing till I literally was pushing until like I was red in the face. I mean, I had snot coming out of my nose. I had spit coming out of my mouth. It was ugly. Okay, guys, it was ugly. And so we were just doing that over and over and over again. I think at one point I like pooped on the table and I told them, I was like, I'm pooping, I can't help it. And I couldn't. You have no control over that whole half of your body. They're like, no big deal. They just wiped it up, took out the little pad, put a new pad in. I was like, this is great. But it wasn't, because I was still contracting. It felt like I was being ripped open from the inside. It's the worst pain. I can't even begin to describe it. That's what people ask me, what does it feel like? And it's literally like someone is like ripping your legs apart from like your, like from the insides. Like it's almost like a growing pain. You know, you guys ever had growing pains when you were a kid? Your bones would hurt and your arms would hurt. That's kind of how it felt, but like exponentially, like fire, everything, pain. It just was the worst combination of pain. That's really what contractions are. It's such a combination of different things because you've got hormones and your body's trying to do something. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's just a combination of pains, fire, cramps, tearing, like bone pain, like just all of it, because your bones are moving, your body, it's a lot. So we continue in this cycle and I'm screaming at this. So at this point, it's getting closer now. She's like, I can see her head. BJ was so sweet. She's like, her head, look at her head. She's all excited, like, oh my God, she's got black hair. It's so curly. And like, she's all stoked. And I'm just like, get her out of it. She's like, honey, you have to push her head up to her ears and then I can help the rest of the way. So I'm thinking like, okay, that's gonna be like on the next push, right? So here comes another contraction. We do it again and I'm like pushing and pushing and everyone's like pulling my legs back and I'm like, pull my leg, because like, you know, I'm doing ab crunches basically. Like I'm going up and they're pulling my legs back and I pretty much had to tell them like, pull harder. I'm like yelling at my mom and my doula to like pull everything back, and because I'm crunching forward. And so we're doing that, and every time BJ would like help, you know, kind of widen the area again, like and so it got to the point where like I saw her head start to crown out, like pop out, and I saw a gush of blood, and I'm like, okay, this is like real. Like I knew when I saw that, I was like, I cannot stop no matter what I do, no matter how bad I feel, no matter how ugly, or if I am dead, I am not gonna stop pushing until this baby is out of me, because her head was right there. And my fear, because my sister, if I can just like share a little bit about my sister, she had a baby And it got to the point where like the labor was taking so long, he was losing fluids. There's a lot happening. And my fear was, if I stop pushing, my daughter's going to lose oxygen or lose fluids, or she's going to stop breathing. And all of these fears were like rushing through my head. If I stop pushing, my kid, like she could die, is how I felt. My sister's son, after he was in the NICU, he's totally fine and healthy and is now 4 years old and great. So he's totally fine. But still, as a new mom, you think of all the worst case scenarios. And so my nose is running. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So I see her head, I see the gush, and BJ's like, look, her head's coming out. Oh my God. And everyone's all like, oh my God. Like, look at her. She's like, do you want to touch? Do you want to feel her head? And I'm just like, no, I want her out of me. But as a good sport, I was like, everyone's really excited. I should probably try to like give in to this excitement. So I was like, okay. So I take my fingers, I think just my pointer finger, and I like rub the top of her head like this. I like put my finger there, and I was like, I pulled it back because I was just like, oh, it was just a lot. I was going through a lot. I just wanted her out of me. And it's a weird feeling to touch something that's still inside of you. It's different when it's someone else touching the baby's head because they're not feeling what I'm feeling. And I was feeling a lot, and I wanted her out of me, and I kept screaming like, so I was getting confused because I see her head now. She's crowning. I'm touching her head. Everyone's shouting. They're all excited. And I'm like, why is she still in me? I don't understand, you guys. Like, aren't you going to help get her out? Didn't you say you were going to get her out? Why is she still in me? I'm doing everything you're telling me to do. I'm pushing on every contraction. I'm pushing my ass off. Literally, I'm pushing all the shit, the poop in me out, okay? Like, why is my baby still in me and not out? I don't get it. And she pretty much just like, you need to keep pushing. You're going to have to push this baby out. And I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I don't get it. Like, I am pushing. So whatever. I was getting really frustrated and just like cranky at this point. I mean, rightly so. I'm sleep deprived. I've been at this for days. We've been in labor for 12 hours now. Like, I'm just done. No pain meds, no epidural. I've had no breaks, no naps, no rest. I'm literally done. I was done hours ago when I said I wanted to go to the hospital, and they managed to like find a natural scenario to keep me there, which I'm very grateful now, but understand where I was at in the moment. I already wanted to go to a hospital. I'm already exhausted. Get this baby out of me. Okay, that's where I'm coming from. That's what I'm dealing with. And they're, of course, good sports. Like, we're doing our, she's getting there. So, so here comes another contraction, and it's like, all right, here I go. Take a deep breath, push. Oh, okay, stop, okay. Take a break, I'm crying, I'm just like, oh, the worst pain. And eventually, so another contraction comes. Finally, finally, I'm like, okay, I am not gonna stop, because your body takes over. I got to one contraction where I was like, I don't care if they tell me to stop pushing. I'm not going to stop pushing. So the contraction finally came, this one big one. And at this point, I'm pushing. Every time I push, she comes out a little more. And they're telling me, like, she's coming out more. Just got to keep going. And I'm just, like, thinking, again, why is she still in me? Get her out. If she's coming out more, then pull her out. I don't get it. And so, so I was like, all right, Aubrey, there's one contraction came, and I'm just like, I'm not going to stop pushing. And I told them, I was like, you guys, even if you tell me, I may not stop pushing. And they're like, whatever you want to do, listen to your body. And so there's one contraction came, and I just like was pushing. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, I'm not going to stop. And I just like kept going, and I'm like cranking and yelling at people at this point. I'm like, don't stop. And so I'm like pushing. And I felt the ring of fire. And then the next thing I know, her head pops out, and they're like, she's get her out of me. And they're like, look at her. And I'm just like, get her out. And BJ's like, okay. And she like helps pull her. So then she helps kind of gently, of course, like jig the baby out. Immediately when she comes out, she's screaming her life off. Aurora is screaming. And they're like, ah, they like plop her on my chest. And she's like blue and all kinds of colors, and she's got slime all over her. And oh my God, I just could not. She finally came out, and it was the most incredible thing. Like, she was out of me, and it was just like that, you know? It was like she's out. And they put her on my chest, and she's screaming bloody murder, my baby, but which is good. Like, she was breathing right away. She was vocal right away. She was, you know, breathing, taking oxygen, all of the stuff that they would have tested for. She came out like, bam. They did say that the cord was around her neck, but like when she was coming out, but they were able to easily just pull it right off, you know, take it right off and put her on me. So she wasn't like tangled necessarily in it. There wasn't really any of that going on. Thank God. And so they put her on me, and they're cleaning her, you know, they give her rags, and they're trying to wipe her down, and she's on me, and I'm just like, got this screaming baby. She's screaming in my face, loving that, you know, and I'm just trying to hold her. And they're, of course, you know, placenta. So I don't remember the feeling of the placenta coming out, but what I really do remember is them pushing on my uterus, because after you give birth, as many women know, you're bleeding, obviously, and they have to get your uterus to stop contracting and to stop bleeding. So the way they do that is by applying pressure and kind of like pumping your stomach, and it hurts. It actually hurt worse than her coming out of me, if you can believe it. And so they're pushing, and I'm like, can you guys please like stop? She's like, no, honey, I can't. And I'm just like, why? Because if they do, I'll bleed. I'll bleed to, you know, to death or whatever. And so they have to keep like applying pressure, applying the compressions essentially to get your body to stop bleeding. And I lost a lot of blood, you guys, like blood everywhere. Like, you gave birth to a baby, like you're gonna bleed a lot. So I was bleeding a ton. And I just remember we let the cord hum, the umbilical cord, for a while. And then I remember it stopped humming, and meaning it stopped humming. So all the fluids had gotten to the baby. And so my mom cut the cord, which was really cool. And I brought this candle with me when I gave birth to her. And we planned to light it when, like, immediately after she came out, or no, we planned to like have it lit, I think, while I was giving birth, but there was so much going on and we kind of forgot. So she was born, and I'm holding her right on my chest, and then I put this out like on the side table somewhere, or maybe it was over by the bathtub and someone put it on the side table next to the bed, and we lit it after she was born for kind of like her little birthday candle. So highly recommend moms or dads and moms having a candle, bringing a candle with you to your delivery or whatever. And it's kind of like, I keep it in her little keepsake box, so it's something that, like, I don't know, maybe every year on her birthday I'll like light it or whatever at the time she was born. And if it runs out, or when it runs out rather, I could either save the jar, save a little bit what's left, and then we could always get a new candle and just keep the tradition going with new candles. So that is an idea that I came up with, and because I love candles, so free life hack there. Yeah, I mean, I laid there with her for a while. Eventually we let her, so I wanted her to do the natural like discovery of the breast. Eventually I kind of moved her down a little bit, but I just kind of let her stay there. And then eventually we figured out the latch. It was hard, you guys. It was really hard. Like, it was really hard because she's screaming her head off, my daughter, because she just came out of me. She's a baby. That's what they do. So she's screaming her head off, and I'm trying to get her to latch. And, you know, it's a learning curve. And she's like, you know, shouting and screaming and angry. And so finally she did latch, and that was great, you know, and she latched on the right side first, and then eventually she was only eating on the right for like a week. Eventually this breast got so sore I had to switch her to the left, and then the left became my power boob, and then my right became my slacker boob, even though I don't really like calling them that, but that's the one boob that can tend to produce more than the other. So that ended up being my left. So it was weird that she started on the right and then the left became like the powerhouse. So anyway, so yeah, then not done yet. So, you know, we're not at a hospital, so we're not staying the night. Like, this isn't a hospital, folks. Like, this is a birthing center, and like, yes, we have a private room and a bathtub and all that stuff, but like, they don't have moms staying the night. The reason why is because if another mom is like, hey, I'm in labor, they need the room clean, you know, and whatever. So the plan all along was to get a hotel room, and we did. So the baby's out now, and we're like, shit, like, we need to book a room. Like, we still hadn't done that because partly we weren't sure like what was going to happen. So, you know, it's now, she was born at 12:21 at midnight. So like, we're in the middle of the night. My mom's like calling a few places. We were down in Laguna Hills, and we found a nice place. And so pretty much like, once we got packed up my stuff, put the baby in the carrier, and I felt so bad. I was like still very cranky at this point. I was like, it's too tight. I'm like, because she's still screaming at this point, and I thought like the straps were too tight, and Sarah was like, Aubrey, they're fine. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know, I was a mess. I was cranky. I was sleep deprived. I was tired. I wanted to be done. So we leave the birthing center. We drive. Oh my God, this is where it gets terrible. So we drive over to the hotel, and you guys, there's probably like 1 in a million women who understands what I'm about to say, but driving in a car immediately after you've had a bowling ball come out of your vagina is not a great idea. It hurts really bad. Mind you, I still don't have any pain meds in me at all. At all. Okay? Even after she was born, we talked about me like taking a Tylenol. No, I didn't take anything. Too much was happening. So I'm in pain in the car, sitting on the very thing that I just pushed my baby out of. Okay. Swollen, bleeding, got this huge pad thing on me, and in so much pain. So we get to the hotel, and we come waddling in, you know, and I'm holding her in her carrier in my moo-moo outfit. I call it my moo-moo. It's basically this gray thing that zips up. It looks terrible, but thank you for my sister, because it came in really handy. I still wear it around the house. But anyway, so we check in, we walk forever, it felt like, to the room. It was like up and around and down and up and this and all the way down the hall. And oh my gosh, like, next time I'm like, could you have given us a closer room? Like, what the hell? So we go to our room finally, like Timbuktu, which I'm just irritated at this point. Get into the room. My mom goes back to the car to get the bags. So I'm in the room, and I want to shower. I feel disgusting. I want to brush my teeth because I haven't brushed my teeth in like a day. And she was sleeping at this point in her little carrier. And then my mom got back. Anyway, I don't know why I'm going in all these details, but fast forward like the nighttime, and pretty much like I needed to sleep. So like we had 2 large beds. So like my mom was on her bed, and then I was on mine, and my mom, like, eventually, like, I don't know what happened. I fell asleep. I was that tired. Then at some point in the middle of the night, my mom came and brought Aurora next to me and laid her like on the bed flat next to me. And we slept like that for like until however long in the morning. Then the morning comes and we check out. We had to go back to it's me. I forgot to mention that when we loaded Aurora up in the car after we were leaving the birthing center, so we stayed in the hotel. We had to go back to the birthing center for her. I guess the way that they do it there, again, since it wasn't a hospital and we weren't staying the night there, we had to bring her back the next morning for her like additional checkup or whatever, just to make sure she was doing fine, which is kind of interesting. But like I said, if we were in a hospital, they just do all that stuff before they discharge you, where in this case, like, we had to leave because we couldn't stay the night at the birthing center, and then we went back. So again, kind of sucked, but so we're leaving the birthing center. We have her loaded up in the car, and we're standing there. I hadn't gotten in yet, and my mom was with me, and the back door of the car is open where she was, because she was in the middle in her bucket. And so the next thing I know, I just see like fluids go like shooting out from like her little bucket. And I like dove in the car, and I like quickly unbuckled her, and I like grabbed her out as fast as I can because she had projectile, which a lot of babies, not all, but a lot of babies have that. And basically she had fluids from like amniotic fluid, different things from her journey out, I guess, inside of her tummy. And she threw all of that up. So luckily I was standing there when it happened. So we got her out. That was terrifying. This was literally all within the first 24 hours of her life. We're leaving the birthing center, we're driving, and then she has a little bit more of that sound to throw up. So I get out, I go back there. And she was fine, I think, at that point. Anyway, it's a long story, but we finally are on the road late in the day in traffic. And I'm sitting on the very thing that I just gave birth out of. My butt and my pee-pee are in a lot of pain. And we were down in Laguna Hills and we were driving back up here to the Inland Empire. And so it was like 2 hours and I was screaming at my mom. I'm like, Mom, I don't care what you have to do. Just get around this traffic. I don't care if you have to break a law or drive on the side of the freeway or cut somebody off. I don't care. Drive like my life depends on it because I literally am dying. I need to get into bed. I need to be off of my bottom. Now we're driving home, stuck in traffic. It was 2.5, so much traffic. I was so irritated, like I said. But we're on the freeway, we're stuck in traffic, and the next thing I know, I hear her I think I was looking back, and I hear it again, all this fluid come flying out, and I was like, Mom, pull off to the side of the road, and I tried to lift from because I'm in the front seat, and I was trying to from the front seat lift her little chair up so that any of the fluids that were coming out would come out and not get go back in. Sorry, it's not. Anyway, I'm working on my neck. So my mom pulls over and I race back there and again, get her out of the car seat. And yeah, it was just more projectile vomit from whatever was in her stomach and terrifying. These are things that no one tells you about or no one prepares you for, when you have a baby. So these things happened to me while we were on the road. And again, in a normal situation, you'd either still be in the hospital, you would be already at home, close by, you wouldn't have had to drive far like I did, So, and it was my choice. I chose to give birth in Laguna versus Corona because I am more comfortable and familiar with Orange County than I was with the city of Corona or the Inland Empire in general. So just my preference. And so, and then as she was a newborn, there were several other times that she would projectile vomit, but those were the first two really terrifying experiences I had with her throwing up, and they both happened when she was strapped in her car seat while we were on the road. And so I'm just throwing that out there to say make sure you're paying very close attention to your babies, especially a newborn when you're on the road with them, and you haven't heard a noise from them, or especially as a baby, they are not making a lot of noise anyway, and chances are they're probably sleeping, but you just want to be, and that's the thing, oh, they fell asleep, so you kind of aren't listening because they're not making noise, and the next thing you know, they're throwing up. So you just have to be very aware of what's happening with them while you're on the road, especially as a newborn. And so that's that. And we finally made it home upstairs. And then, after that, it was pretty much baby life, My mom stayed with me for the first 10 days and pretty much round the clock taking care of Aurora. And she was so tiny. She's so big now, but she was so tiny. And yeah, let me think of other questions. So I had a doula. The doula came over. She was also a lactation consultant. So she came over shortly after I gave birth. So she was there the whole time. Then she left when she was, out and we were all settled. Then she came back a couple days later to make sure that the latch was going well. And so that was really helpful. I highly recommend you if you're going to breastfeed, having some sort of lactation consultation. It just puts your mind at ease as a new mom. I never want to do that again. I had one baby and I'm good for now. I'm not looking to have another child in the near future, because I did it natural. I had her 100% natural with no pain meds. I had, the water birthing. I was in the water. I, had everything that I wanted my delivery to look like. I had. And I had a great team at the Beach Cities Midwife Center, and with Sarah and BJ and the assistant, I don't remember her name, sorry, and then my doula Tony and my mom. And it took, every single person played such an integral role. Yeah, I said that right. In my delivery. If one person wasn't there, I don't think it would have been the same scenario, and I probably wouldn't have made it through, because like I said, they intervened naturally. They created a natural intervention which allowed me to stay in the natural delivery path. Otherwise, I would have had to go to the hospital, get an epidural, and then try pushing her out again, So I was grateful for the intervention that they offered, and I highly recommend any woman who's considering a natural birth to make sure that you've done your research about what to expect in a natural birth, that you have a support person and maybe a doula, and that you have a really, whoops, that's my low power battery. I'll wrap it up here, folks. That you have a really good team, because it took everyone in my team to get my daughter out. And if you're thinking about delivering naturally and you have questions that I didn't answer, because there's probably a lot that I didn't talk about because I was trying to go quick for the video, DM me or text me if you have my number. We could talk more about it. And yeah, I love being a mom. It was very hard. Like I said, I did it. I'm good. I paid my dues. I did it natural, the way that, we are, I guess, God-given ability. I feel like I've tapped into my divine feminine, my divine goddess, superpower, and I did it, and I'm proud, and I feel accomplished as a woman, as a mom. Not that, like, if you have a different delivery, that's great, that's your story, but this is my story, and I'm damn proud that I pushed my baby out 100% natural. Because it is a superpower that we as women are given, and one that I don't think gets talked about enough because of Western medicine, because of the way that we have Western medicine, epidurals and pain meds, and it's pretty much like boop, and you just boop, boop, boop. But when you do it natural, a different way, like, I have a lot of respect for what our bodies are capable of and how much pain we're able to endure for the sake of our children. Will I do it again anytime soon? No, like I've said, I'm good for now on that. And if you had a natural delivery, you understand what I mean. And if you haven't had a natural delivery, I'm sure you still experience some pain and challenges in your delivery. So I respect your journey. Please respect mine. But yeah, I wanted a natural birth and I got a natural birth. So I feel pretty accomplished. And the water was a huge help. So if you are considering a natural delivery, whether it's in a home birth or at a birthing center like I did, try to have a warm tub, a warm jacuzzi, a pool, whatever that's warm, because that is what literally allowed me to relax and get my contractions going. So I highly recommend it. And if I ever had another baby, I would probably try to deliver him or her fully in the water, because your second child is a little bit easier anyway. So, but the water really helps. So I highly recommend, again, if you're doing a home birth, to have a pool or a kiddie pool or a tub that you can soak in, because you are able to fully just float. We're buoyant. So our buoyancy allows us to kind of relax, which is what you need to do when you're contracting. Literally, like I said, melt. They are like, you need to melt, Aubrey, melt. No, melt, get deeper, fall into it, deep, sink into your contraction. Widen your hips, relax into it, melt. And that's what I kept doing, and it was so hard because I did not want to melt. I wanted to scream and kick somebody and punch somebody and fight and scream and go to bed. I did not want to melt. I was very upset. Like, a lot of the time I was like, I don't want to melt. I want to scream and cry and kick somebody, something, So that's why I'm saying it's important that you have a good team of people who can coach you. My nose is running again, sorry. Who can coach you through your delivery. Because it's totally possible. If you think like, oh, I can't do that, I'm not strong enough, like that's why I say do your research. If you want to have a natural delivery, like you really do need to do your research, because it is hard. And if you think going into like, I can do that, no problem, no, like you need to be prepared mentally. It's not about physically, it's mental preparation, because if you can get your mind over the matter, you can do it. You can, you just have to mentally get there. And I prepared for months and months and months. I was watching, and if anyone's interested to know what videos I watched to help prepare me mentally, again, DM me or text me, because I was watching podcasts, listening to them, and watching YouTube videos about what to expect, what did a natural delivery look like, and advice from other women who have done it naturally. So I knew what to expect. So I think if you want to do it this way, do your research, reach out to me, reach out to someone you know who's done it natural, and start mentally preparing yourself. Again, listen to the podcast, watch the YouTube videos, like be prepared. It is not a cakewalk, and it looks like, oh, great, glamorous, but it's hard, especially without any pain medicine. So one thing I left out, after she came out and she was feeding, they hooked me up to an IV because I was pretty dehydrated at that point. So they got, and I had to pee before I could leave. So they hooked me up to an IV. They let that drip, drip, drip for however long I was there, an hour. Then finally I felt like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to get up and try to use the restroom, which was terrifying because I felt like my whole bottom was going to fall off. My whole lower half felt like it was going to fall off if I stood up. So and everything was hurting. Every little inch that I moved hurt. So have a lot of respect for your moms and your girlfriends and your wives and anybody in your life that's a woman. You need to really just respect her because of the pain and the strength that she went through. Okay? So I go to the bathroom, and it took a little while, but I was like, no, I definitely feel like I need to use, they were talking about putting a catheter in, and I think they even attempted to put a catheter in. They tried for 2 seconds. I was like, absolutely not. They tried to put the catheter in while she was still in me, because I don't know why. Because in case I don't know, there's probably some reason. In case I needed to pee, oh yeah, I could just empty my bladder. But I don't think I had enough liquid in me at that point. So they tried, and I was like, this hurts, no, stop. So they didn't even get it in before. So I didn't have a catheter in me. So I get up to go to the bathroom. I'm sitting on the toilet. I'm in terrible pain. And I just waited, and they were so patient with me. And the assistant was in there. I forget her name, but she was just waiting and so patient. She was like, so finally, I started to pee, and it took a little while. And that sucked, but I peed. And so then I was able to go. And then I think later that night, once we got to because everyone's like, oh, what's it like pooping? I think I actually pooped that night. And I was so terrified when I felt the urge to poop, because I was like, again, I felt like everything was going to fall, was going to bust open, blah, my insides and my everything was just going to, sorry for the visual. Oh my God. Okay. So it came out. I don't remember anything. I did have, so it came out, whatever. But when I got home later, I had hemorrhoid, I think one, and I tore a little bit, but they didn't have to stitch me. So it had to heal naturally. So that kind of hurt, because every time you use the restroom, it stings. Think about having a cut and you get pee in your cut and it stings. So that kind of sucked. And then having hemorrhoids, that also hurts too, because every time you sit down, it's very sensitive. And, whenever you do poop, you're re-irritating that natural skin. Disclaimer, I'm perfectly healed now. Your body, for any woman, myself included, who's like, will you ever get back to being normal again? Yes, you will. Trust me, I'm a Scorpio. I'm very stubborn, very opinionated, and I think I'm right. And I was like, I'm never gonna be normal again. It's never gonna go away. I'm always gonna be have a hemorrhoid, and I'm always gonna have a tear, and it's always gonna hurt. And I was just, even my stomach, I'm like, will my stomach ever get like not like flabby again? Will it ever become normal? It's still like a little bit flabby, but it's getting better. But I waited like the 6 weeks. You're supposed to wait 6 weeks before the doctor clears you for physical activity and working out. So I waited and I let my body heal fully before I got back to my workouts and stuff. And so for any mom out there, whatever, who's wondering like, will I ever get back to normal? Like, you will. Your body will eventually heal. Just need to rest a lot, and that's what I did. Yeah, right. I was like vacuuming my house like after a few weeks. I took like a 2-mile walk to the bank with her when she was like a newborn, and then I went to the doctor for a checkup. They're like, yeah, maybe don't do any long walks. I was like, I already did that, sorry. So, but after she was like, maybe don't, I pulled back a little bit on it all. But yeah, I'm fine now. I'm perfectly healed in all areas, including the hemorrhoids. So yeah, and what else can I say? I felt the ring of fire. A lot of women say they didn't feel it. Oh, and my water did break naturally. They didn't break it. It broke naturally. So at one point, like I said, we were in the tub, got out of the tub. We were in the bathroom. At one point, I think we got back in the tub. And then when they got me out to finally kind of check to see what was going on, we did a lot of like standing contractions. And I would just like lean on my mom and just like contract and just like sink on her. And somewhere in that like walking around standing contractions, I was standing, and all of a sudden I felt like wet down, like drips down at my toes. And I looked down, I'm like, oh, you guys, my water just broke. And I looked and I saw this little like, bit of a like watery trail. And they're like, yep, that's what it looks like. That was your water. And so my water broke naturally, which was really cool. And I don't remember it being like a gush. And it probably like trickled more than a gush. And they say that like the way that it is in movies, sometimes that's not realistic. It's like given this impression that it's like a balloon that pops and then like the water just comes coming right out. Like that's not how it really is, or at least not for every woman, or not for me. It's more just like kind of like liquid trickling down. And then finally you realize like, oh, I'm standing in like a little pool of water. Oh, there's a bunch of water drops all around me. So that was pretty cool to like actually look down and see like, oh, like that's like my water, it broke, because like these are all things that you're like, will that happen? Some women talk about how their water never broke, or like they had to do it. I don't know. There's just a lot of different scenarios. So it was cool that it actually did break on its own. And yeah, I'm trying to think what else people have asked me about. I don't know if I left anything out. Drop a comment. Drop a comment, DM me, or leave a comment. Yeah, leave a comment or text me. I hope you liked this video. I just finally needed to like get it done. I feel like I could talk to you guys forever. Whoever's watching this, thank you. And I made it sound like really easy. So the moral of the story is like, I'm a badass. Really, any mom who gives birth is a badass. And I feel extra badass right now. Even talking about this, I'm like, wow, like I did that. Like, look at me. Like, I had a baby. She popped out of me. I popped her out, And I have to give mad props to my midwife team. They were incredible. I swear, BJ and Sarah, like if they weren't there, they really are what like allowed me to continue on the natural path, which is their job. That's what they're there for, is to help you. If you want to have a natural delivery, that's their job. And so intervening and having like natural ways to like help get her out. So there was no vacuum that was used. There was no, suctioning thing. Again, no epidural, none of that. No Epitocin, nothing. 100% natural. And so it can be done. And I highly recommend my team, or really just any birthing center, that you feel comfortable going to. Like, I think natural births are becoming a lot more becoming more popular again. They were back in the day. Now I think they're becoming popular again, and I think that's great, because I do think it's a beautiful thing for a woman to experience giving birth to their child naturally, as natural as possible. And again, if you had to have an emergency C-section, or you opted to have a C-section, or you wanted to have natural and you ended up having an epidural and Pitocin and all these things, like that's your story, and be proud of it. And you delivered your baby and they came out, like you did that. Like that's awesome, And for those of us who are blessed to have been able to do it naturally, like, that's awesome. Like, we are incredible women no matter what our story is. And that's why I think it's important, like, not to compare apples and oranges, but just to really, like I'm doing, I'm proud, so I'm going to share my story. And you, whomever you are watching this, mom, like, if you're proud, like, share your story, whatever your story is. Like, be proud, because, and not even just that, like, you can help so many other women prepare. Because this is one thing I will say, like, you need to be prepared for the unexpected. Like, my friend Nirvana gave me really great advice. She's told me, her and her husband, Gabe, they were like, be flexible. No matter what, just whatever you do, just be flexible, because your plan's going to, anything can change at any moment. So I remember thinking, like, I just need to stay flexible. I want to have a natural birth, but if I end up going to the hospital and end up having a C-section, like, I just need to stay calm and stay flexible to whatever is going to happen. And so I would highly recommend that advice for anybody watching this, to be flexible with your plan. And I think that's why it's important for moms to share their stories, because there's so many women like me out there who are like dying for information. Like, what was it like? What do I expect? Like, what was it like having a natural, having epitocin, having or epidural and pitocin, having a C-section? You need to know what all of those things look like, so that if you're in that situation, you know what to expect to an extent. And I know not everyone's fortunate enough to like have all that information ahead of time. I get that. Like, I understand, some people have their babies prematurely, so that you don't even have time. You just, next thing you know, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm giving birth. Like, I thought she was going to come in another month from now. So I get it. Like, in an ideal world, all I'm saying is it's important for moms to share our stories with as many moms and future moms as possible, because you never know who's watching and listening, and it helps them when they get in that situation. So I'm really grateful for my friends and my family who've gone before me. And again, whatever their stories ended up being, I was able to learn from their stories. And a podcast that I listened to was incredible. So let me know if you're interested in hearing what that was. And yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. I'm really grateful that I had friends and family to support me. And it's not like, oh, Aubrey, she's just perfect. She just no, I did my research. I read books, I watched videos, I listened to podcasts, I prepared myself over and over and over again for this delivery. That's why I was able to do it. And I had a great team, a great birthing center at Beach Cities Midwifery, and I I put in the work, you know what I mean? And yeah, I was healthy going into my pregnancy, and I didn't have any complications. That's a whole nother story. If I had had complications, I would have had to have gone to the hospital, which again is why I kept telling myself, be flexible, Aubrey. You may end up at the hospital. Shoot, I was screaming to go to the hospital at a certain point. So all I'm saying is, whatever your story is or ends up being, just know that like you should be proud, because you were able to bring life into this world. And that's something that should always be celebrated, no matter how you go about bringing the life into the world. And I'm excited to hear other stories and talk to other moms out there and hear what your stories were like. I'm sure there's a lot of things that I completely forgot to tell you guys right now, because my brain's like, whoa, what's happening? I should probably stop now. I feel like you guys have had enough of this. Okay, well, let me know if you have any questions.